Hello, everybody. Welcome to Curry and Mitchell from Watts to Brooklyn. I'm Sheldon Curry here once again, along with my good friend James Mitchell, and we're going to discuss a number of topics in the sports world, but primarily the NFL playoffs today. And later in the show, we'll discuss some other things that may fit our fancy and we think you might find interesting. So once again, thanks for joining us. What's up, good brother, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you, thank you.
It's good. Feels like a long time since we've been together.
Yeah, last month.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So we just concluded the wild card round of the playoffs. There were a total of 6 games, 3 in each conference.
Right.
And there were, I guess, 4 really close games and then 2 other games. So what fits your fancy in terms of where you want to start in our recap?
I'll start with one of the games that got away quick.
Okay.
Well, not too quick, but the Seattle game against San Francisco.
Okay.
It was a good game into the third quarter, and Seattle had a very short margin for error in that game because they were really outclassed in terms of talent, not really experience, and it showed at some point. But they played well into the third quarter. As I said, that had a couple of penalties that set them back when they were about to increase their lead. By the way, they were leading at that point by a point, I think, at 17-16 or something like that. And they were down around the 3-yard line, and they had a bunch of penalties pushed them back. Then they had the fumble that the San Francisco scoring, and then kind of piling it on after that. But, I think they acquitted themselves well under the circumstances, and I'm really happy for Geno in the season that he had. Nobody expected that from him. So just to get that out of the way, kind of.
Yeah, well, and what I'll add to it, I think your points are right on. Seattle would have had to play a perfect game because, Frisco is a better team.
Right.
And like in a lot of playoff games, sometimes I don't mean me and you, but when I say we, I'll say the collective we out there forget sometimes about the disparity in talent. And the NFL does a really good marketing job to independent of the point spreads to make everybody believe that every game could be competitive. And for a half it was. But to your point, Seattle would have had to play a perfect game, and they went into leading 17-16. Frisco went down and scored at the beginning of the third quarter. And then Seattle was driving, and I think that's where they had the penalties. Then they had the fumble, and then Frisco scored again, and now they have 2 touchdowns, and effectively the game was over. And back to Geno, I mean, going into the season, who would have predicted, Seattle goes from 4th place last year to 2nd this year. They go from a losing record last year to a playoff team this year. And Geno goes from a guy who barely threw any passes other than when he filled in for Russell last year, when Russell was out those 3 or 4 games, to leading the NFC in touchdown passes with 30. He threw more TD passes than anybody in the NFC, including Brady and Rodgers in the NFC. And he had the highest completion percentage in the NFL. And he's one of the 6 Pro Bowl quarterbacks. So your man Geno, as you like to say.
That's right.
So,
and you still hear people say, well, has he done enough?
Right.
It cracks me up.
Yeah.
These guys would not give it up. They just hate to see these brothers succeed.
Yeah.
Especially a guy like him who was supposed to have been garbage in their eyes.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for him, man. I don't know. I feel like doing cartwheels, even though it doesn't affect me directly.
Yeah.
I'm really happy for him. Really happy for him.
So back to that game real quickly. So how good do you think San Francisco is? And I know we're going to preview their game against Dallas, but just your early observations of San Francisco.
I think San Francisco is loaded. They've been loaded. I mean, the fact that they're winning, not to take it away from this guy Purdy, but the fact that they can put their third-string quarterback in, who has played well overall. He's had some issues with, he was a little shaky at times, even in that game, when the game was close. They put some pressure on him. And we could talk a little bit about the way that Seattle played defense, how they never really blitzed him, which shocked me. But anyway, that's another story. But the game was long over with. But San Francisco is a very talented team. They have a great defense, obviously, and the offense is loaded. And the addition of Christian McCaffrey has helped them tremendously. combine him with Deebo Samuels and the other guys in that offense. They're going to be something to reckon with, and I anticipate the next game coming up against Dallas. That should be a really, really good showdown.
Yeah, kind of to your point about Purdy, he has played very well, but he was 9 of 19 in the first half, and he threw some passes that were very questionable, one or two that could have been picked. And so, not to put anything out there on him because everybody's waiting on this rookie quarterback who was the last player picked in the 7th round, to stub his toe. So we'll see, as the playoffs advance. But yeah, Frisco, they look formidable. I'll say that. I think they've now won 11 in a row, including the playoffs. Let me take you to the other game that wasn't close. Dallas manhandled Tampa Bay 31-14 in Tampa Monday night. Dak just played a great game. 4 TD passes, no turnovers, 1 touchdown rush, and he just picked them apart. What do you think there?
I think that game turned out the way I thought it should have turned out. It was a team as talented as Dallas playing a sub 500 team. They went in and did what they were supposed to do. They beat the crap out of them. They beat the crap out of them. Wasn't even close, And Brady looked like a 45-year-old quarterback. They can say all they want about he doesn't have any talent around him. But some of the passes he threw, man, he was missing guys thrown behind him. They never talked about it. It was always somebody else's fault, when he missed guys that were open. He's 45 years old, and they expect him to play like he was playing 20 years ago. I know we hate to see our icons get old and not be able to produce like the way they used to. But it happens to everybody. And they had a team that was lucky to get in the playoffs because it was such a lousy division.
Right.
And the way this thing is set up, which is kind of crazy, you get, if you win your division, no matter what your record is, you get to the playoffs. So,
beyond that, you get a home game.
You get a home game. Right.
Because Dallas had four more wins than Tampa Bay, still had to go on the road.
Yeah. So Dallas did what they were supposed to do, and I was glad to see that happen. And I was happy for Dak, especially coming off the poor game they played as a team against Washington the week before, but nobody seemed to want to play. And they looked terrible in that game. So to have them come back the way they did was really good for them. And I look forward to them playing the next game against San Francisco. That should be a real battle.
Yeah.
Although, as we talked earlier the other day, the setup to have them play on a Monday night is really unfair because it shortens their week. They have less time to recover. Then they have to make another trip. They went through one coast to play Tampa Bay. Now they have to go to California to play San Francisco. So that puts them at a bit of a disadvantage, I think. It's not fair. And they should really look at that Monday night game. I think they should do away with it, really.
Yeah, it's kind of a recent phenomenon in the playoffs. I think they did it last year because last year was, I believe last year was the first year of the 7 teams in the playoffs. It was either last year or the year before. And I know last year they did have a Monday night games because I think the Rams played on Monday night and came and they were able to beat Tampa Bay that following Sunday. But I think even more important than playing on the Monday and then coming back on Sunday is the fact that San Francisco played Saturday afternoon. So that's almost I won't say 2.5 days, but 2.25 days. They were done playing by 4:30 West Coast time, I believe, on that Saturday. And Dallas wasn't done almost midnight or about 9 o'clock West Coast time on Monday. So that's a big disparity. And then when you throw in the travel and the whole bit. So, but I like the fact that Dallas is not making excuses. A couple of comments coming from the coach and owner say, "Hey, we're gonna play ball." So. But let's come back to that when we get into the previews of the 4 games. I want to take you back to some of the closer games. We don't have to get in depth of all 4 of them, but let's go Cincinnati, Baltimore.
Oh man, that's still hurt. Thank God, man. I'm getting paid for that. And as you predicted, you said that Baltimore could beat them, and you were right on, man. Their defense was outstanding. They put a job on Cincinnati. You can say what you want about Joe Burrow and his boys, but they were in their case, man. They played a hell of a game. They should have won it. That one big mistake that killed them. One big mistake.
Yeah.
And the proof in the pudding is that happened. There was about 11 minutes left in the game. Cincinnati never scored again. So that shows you how good their defense was playing, you know. And they even overcame a roughing the passer penalty, you know, in the end. And they still couldn't score. They still held it to another 3 and out right after that. So the defense played well enough to win. And that one big mistake really killed them. And I just feel bad for them.
Yeah, when you watch that game, man, and you know, because Baltimore is so physical on both sides of the ball. And you don't see a lot of that anymore. And what I mean by that, I mean teams that, you know, everybody's scheming and, you know, and the finesse and this and that and trying to figure out ways and on the defense playing these soft coverages. But Baltimore was beating up Cincinnati. And that from the time Cincinnati went up 9-0 because they missed the extra point when they scored the TD. From that point on, the rest of the game, Baltimore dominated them. If you didn't know what the score was and you just watched, they beat them up. And you know, if they scored that TD like they should have gone up 24-17, that's ball game. They held Cincinnati to 230 yards of total offense.
That's right.
230 yards.
Yeah, they shut them down. They really did.
They did.
They shut them down.
They did.
Such a shame. And then the play calling. I'll go back to the play call too on that fumble that he had. You know, 3-yard line, 1st and goal from the 3, and number 1, and the running back even complained about it after the game.
Dobbins.
He wasn't even in the game. He didn't get a carry. And you got Edwards, and you're gonna go to that shotgun and try to pass on the first play, which you talked about. As soon as you saw that, you figured it was over.
Yeah, I knew it was over, man. When they threw that little something to Picard.
Right, it was tipped and they get to him or whatever. And then they go with the quarterback sneak, and the guy try to jump over with 5 foot. I don't know how tall he is, but he tried to jump 1.5 yards, which is kind of ridiculous. He made a mistake.
Yeah, he did.
Should have gone low. He went high, should have gone low. But those things happen, you know. But rather, you know, you 1st and goal from the 3. You got Edwards and Dobbins and the other guy who they tried to throw the pass to. I can't think of his name. 45 or something. The fullback. You know, you go under the center.
Go full house, man.
Go full house, man. You know, fake the Edwards up the middle and get around the side.
Thank you.
You know, anything. Come on.
I mean, you
first philosophy for all these guys.
And everybody's doing it, going into the shotgun, man. 1st and goal from the 3 with that type of team, man. I'd put that quarterback under center. And, you know, I run one, and if that don't work, maybe I play action and roll that Huntley, and if, you know, and somebody's gonna come open. Yeah, that is such a tough. But when you just put a guy in a shotgun like that, the defense can see what's going on, man. It takes away. Yeah, it definitely does.
And how many times you see a defensive end get around the line and tackle the running back in the backfield when they're in the shotgun? You see it happen all the time. Or at least slow them down. So
and because there's only one back there, nobody to block. That's so crazy to me.
Exactly. And they do it over and over. It's pass-happy football that we're into for the last several years.
These geniuses.
Everybody does the same thing. Yeah, these geniuses. Offensive geniuses. That's what I call me and you football when you get down like that. You know,
I'm with you.
You go at it. You know, and you can stop me. You can keep me in 4 tries with getting 1.5 yards, then you deserve to beat my ass. That's
I'm with you, man.
I mean, please. You know, it's ridiculous. But
I'm with you.
It is what it is. Like you said, these offensive geniuses have to show how cute they are and how fancy they can be and trick somebody. Man, come on.
And think about that play call, even though he was supposed to go low. Think about that on 2nd down.
Yeah, exactly.
What is that?
So 2 yards out.
From 2 yards. That's what I mean. From 2 yards out. What is that?
It's absurd.
You know, it just
really absurd. It's just ridiculous.
You know,
they gave that game away.
They did. And other than that, Huntley played very well.
He did.
He played well.
One mistake.
He made that. Yeah, he played very well.
He played a very good game under the circumstances. But that was painful.
Yeah.
That was painful.
And we know they missed Lamar. Maybe we can get back to Lamar a little later in the show.
Yeah, the whole thing with Lamar is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Let me take you to the Charger Jacksonville game.
Oh man, that was another fiasco. That game is ridiculous. They don't find that coach in Charger that they won't. I'll get rid of all those guys. It's ridiculous. They lose a game like that, you know.
Well, you know they fired the offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
He screwed that game up terribly. I couldn't understand that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, some numbers that go with this, man. It's unbelievable. First of all, it's unbelievable. You could lose a game. Forget that you had a 27-point lead. That you could lose any game where the other team commits 5 turnovers and you commit none. That's one. The second thing is usually when a team comes from a deficit, even a 14 to 17 point deficit, not even 27 as what happened in that game. Usually you'll have a miscue from the other team, a block punt, something, or a kickoff return, something that happens real quick, But it didn't happen in this game. And where the Chargers, they can blame their defense all they want, but and that's only a couple of numbers I want to throw out there. I looked this up. When Jacksonville made those 5 turnovers, the 4 interceptions by Lawrence, and then the ball hit on a punt, hit one of the guys who were blocking, hit him in the helmet, and the Chargers recovered. 3 of the Chargers' drives started inside the Jacksonville 20 and 1 inside the 10.
Right.
So first of all, the fact that they only came up with 27 points when they had that kind of field position, and the other 2 turnovers, they didn't have to go much more than 60 yards. So, and maybe 35 for field goals. So that's number one, the Chargers offense, and now I get back to Herbert.
Right.
And then the other thing, though, and this is the offensive strategy. I read somewhere where they, in the second half, they ran the ball a total of 7 times. 7. And Herbert was 11 to 23 passes. So every time you throw incomplete, guess what? The clock stops.
That's it.
And Jacksonville needed every second. And then the last point on this, not to bore you with this, there was an article that said that except for 2 or 3 plays, not possessions, plays in the second half, the Chargers were consistently snapping the ball between 5 and 10 seconds, and sometimes between 12 and 15.
Wouldn't let the clock run down.
Wouldn't let the clock run down.
Yeah.
When the clock was running, that's what I mean. Yeah, when the clock was running.
Yeah.
So that's it's all. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, and then let's give credit where credit's due too. The Jaguars defense held them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
The amount of turnovers and shut them down in the second half to hold them to 2 field goal tries, one of which was unsuccessful, which would have won the game, by the way. A very short kick that he missed in the end of the game. Their defense shut them down.
They did.
Justin Herbert, or whatever the great Justin Herbert supposed to lead them to victory. You can only come up with 3 points in the second half. So that was a great turnaround for them. Well, great defensive performance throughout the game, given those, the turnovers they had. To hold them to 27 was something to begin with, and that was a phenomenal game to turn around like that. Yeah,
and my observations real quick, I give Lawrence a lot of credit because to throw 4 picks like that, most people probably would have just, disappeared. So I give him a lot of credit. And you have to give a lot of credit to his teammates and his coach for hanging with him. The other thing is this Etienne is the real deal. And you were telling me you watched him a lot at Clemson.
Yeah, I did. I was fortunate enough to see him play a lot.
Yeah.
Heck of a running back. I was wondering who was going to get him in the draft, and it was interesting that he wound up with his old teammate from Clemson, and Lawrence. He's a very good back, and I'm looking forward to seeing him continue his careers.
And he made that hell of a run on that 4th and 1.
Oh, man, yeah.
That set up the final field goal.
And he said, no.
And another interesting thing is that they reported that even after Jacksonville fell down 27-0, from that point on, Etienne still had 14 more carries.
Right.
So they kept running the ball.
Exactly.
But the team that had the big lead.
Yeah, he was effective. He ran for over 100 yards.
Yeah, he was.
And we have to call out Joey Bosa, too. I mean,
he
didn't help his team. That meltdown is ridiculous. You can't do that kind of stuff.
You can't.
You can't. And it cost his
team. He cost his team.
And he had 2 of those, And if, you can throw your helmet and be pissed off with the referees or whatever. Get off the field and go to the bench and throw your damn helmet. You don't throw it on the field and get a penalty cost your team like that. That was.
You know where I'm going with that. if that had been
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
somebody that of a different hue, all you would have heard is "You can't do that." They'd have been talking about it for 15 minutes. You'd have heard about it on every sports center.
They still be talking about it.
But with Joey Bosa, some of it was, well, you got to understand it was a bad call. And he cares so much. This is like, okay.
He's so passionate.
He's so passionate. No,
And he sucked his whole team.
I know. And the last point I'm going to make on this game, man, and I think Herbert is a good quarterback, but I think there are little things that show up. What might be forgotten in that game, I forgot what the score was. I think the score was 24-0. You remember when he missed Keenan Allen wide open in the end zone?
Yeah.
And then they had to kick the field goal to go up 27. Right. I'm not saying the game would have been over 31-0, but that was a huge miss.
Right.
And it was an unforced error.
That's right.
Because he was wide open and Herbert wasn't under any real duress.
Real pressure. No.
Yeah, so.
No.
Well, so yeah, man. So, all right. The last game of the weekend. No, it's two more games. Let's go to real quickly the Giants and the Vikings. You got anything to add on that one?
Man, the Giants when they took care of business, man. That guy Daniel played probably the best game.
Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones. He played a perfect game, just about. He was outstanding. Saquon was outstanding. Defense stood up when it had to, and Minnesota does what it seems to do a lot of times, man. Their defense is not that good, and I don't know, they just couldn't make the plays, man.
What do you think of Kirk Cousins on that fourth down, man?
That's ridiculous. Kirk Cousins, what you were talking about? Kirk Cousins goes for the stats, man. You need 8 yards, he threw a 3-yard pass.
I mean,
on fourth down.
On fourth down.
You can't do it. You got to force it to somebody that's at least at the the yardage line to make the first down. You have to. You can't throw it to someone, unless he's wide open and nobody in front of him.
Right, exactly.
But he's contested, they got to break a tackle, they get there. No, you can't do that. But that's what he does, man. And then they didn't run the ball. They didn't run the ball. They have one of the best running backs in the league, and they barely use them a lot of times. Cook. I don't get it, but they do what what people come to expect them to do. They find a way to melt down, and the defense isn't good. So the Giants really went there and put it on them, man. They played a really outstanding game.
Yeah, I think that, led by Dexter Lawrence, the all-pro in the middle of that defensive line, they're formidable on defense.
They are.
I just don't know if they have enough offensively to get past this after this round. Yeah. The last game of the weekend, Miami, Buffalo.
Man, that's another game that got away from a team that was the underdog that had a chance to win it. Miami played a very good game, and they had some uncharacteristic drops throughout that game from some usually very reliable receivers. And down near the end of the game, the coaching sabotaged their offense, in my view, with their inability to get plays in on time. They had at least one delayed game penalty, and they had to waste 2 timeouts to avoid having 2 others in the last 3-4 minutes of the game, which was unconscionable. Mm-hmm. And it's just ridiculous. 3-4 plays in a row, it happened. You can't get a play in before they're 15 seconds left on the play clock, so the quarterback has to huddle the team, tell them what the play is, get to the line of scrimmage, try to react to the defensive scheme that he's facing, and he's got 4 seconds on the clock. He can't get the ball snapped, and it's not his fault. That kid played a good game. He's a third-string quarterback. He played well, and combined the drops and the mismanagement by the coaching staff, it just did them in. They had an opportunity to beat Buffalo. They really did, but they couldn't under those circumstances, man. They played very well, other than the things I mentioned.
Yeah, that seems to be a theme, man. I have this philosophy that with all this new age technology and the headsets and all the things that they can do now, it's just incredible to me that you can't get these plays off, and you see it across the league. And my thing is this: any system you have to convey plays or any plays you're trying to run that constantly lead to these types of issues, having to either get delayed games, calling a timeout, or even worse probably is hurrying right before the clock goes out, is not worth having. That's my philosophy.
Exactly.
I mean, And and really, I don't want to spend any more time. But I read after the fact that Baltimore had an issue in time during their last drive that they let a lot of time go off the clock. Do you they seem like they just wasn't rushing, from what I understand. I don't know if that's, but man, I just don't understand it. These guys, these coaches making millions of dollars, got these big staffs. And as you said the other day, back in the day when the quarterbacks called their own plays, I know I'm probably overblown. I hardly ever remember a delay of game when I was growing up.
It didn't happen much now.
It's just like now it happens several times a game, man. It's just with both teams, it just
right. You have to call timeouts.
Have to call or call these timeouts just because of that.
Keep it from happening. It's absurd. Yeah. It's absurd, but it happens over and over again. And again, it's always these offensive geniuses, on the sidelines.
Right.
They're supposed to be so ahead of the game and know what they're doing. They can't even call a play on time.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Okay, let's move to the divisional round. Now, there's 2 games in each conference. In the NFC, you got the 6th seed Giants, New York Giants, at the top seed, Philadelphia Eagles. And in the other game, you got 5th seeded Dallas against 2nd seeded San Francisco.
Right.
New York and Philly play on, I believe, Saturday.
I think so.
And then Dallas and San Francisco play Sunday. Matter of fact, both NFC games are the night, what I'll call the night games, at least on the West Coast. And we know in the East it'll be definitely at night because you're 3 hours ahead. And then in the AFC, on Saturday, you have Jacksonville, Kansas City, 4 against a 1. And then you got 3-2, Cincy at Buffalo on Sunday. So where do you want to start?
Kansas City and Jaguars.
Okay.
All things being equal, Kansas City should handle them, I think. Kansas City's defense is the only question mark sometimes. But seemingly they find a way to play pretty well in most playoff games. And I expect them to beat the Jaguars. It might be a close game, but it shouldn't be. I think 10, 14 points, they should beat them by at least 2 times. I usually don't get into point spreads, but I just think that they're much more talented than the Jaguars, and they should beat them. But you never can tell.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Kansas City will be rested. Mahomes typically comes up big. I think one of the keys, because you hit it already about Kansas City, I think Kansas City's defense, if they can play a decent game, I have no doubt they will win that game. If they get shredded, which I don't expect them to, but if they get shredded, it could be a very close game. And then Jacksonville is going to have to find a way, because they don't have a great offensive line to handle Chris Jones. If he disrupts some stuff and gets in Lawrence's face, it could be a long day for them. And but I like you. I see Kansas City advancing. Cincinnati at Buffalo. Burrow against Allen.
That should be a war. I think that should be a war. That's a toss-up game to me, even though Cincinnati's on the road. I think they have a good chance of beating Buffalo. But Buffalo's defense should be able to handle their offensive line. And Cincinnati have trouble with the offensive line all year, and the amount of times that Burrow's under pressure or gets sacked.
Yeah, and on top of the fact that they've lost 3 offensive linemen in the last 3 games they've played, even though there was some report yesterday that Kappa might come back for this game, but they definitely have 2 of their 5 out. And if he doesn't return, 3 of their starting 5 will be out. And that could be the difference, frankly.
Yeah, I think Buffalo should be favored. They probably will be.
Yeah.
They're playing at home.
Yeah, they're favored. I think they're 4.5, 5-point favorites. So.
Yeah, but that's a game I think could go either way.
Yeah.
Cincinnati's, I never underestimate Cincinnati. They have a really good defense, and that could keep them in the game. And given Josh Allen's erratic behavior at times.
Propensity for being loose with the ball.
Right. And then accuracy at key times, too.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, because he can come up big with some big-time plays, and then he can just stick his toe in it. And matter of fact, I actually look at it, there's certain matchups of how Cincinnati going to defend Diggs and Gabriel Davis, because Davis, it seems the last 2 or 3 years has come up really big in the playoffs. I think it was against Kansas City last year. He had the 3 touchdowns.
Nobody seems to be able to handle Diggs.
Diggs he's a premier receiver. He's
one of the least talked about great receivers in the NFL. People don't talk about him much. They talk about the best receivers. They talk about these guys like Jefferson and the guy with the Bengals and other guys, but they don't talk about him. But Josh Allen says all he has to do is throw it up and 14's going to catch it.
He's tough. He's tough.
To be very true. He is. He's outstanding. So that's a really good game.
But if I have to throw something out there with this, because like you said, it is a pretty evenly matched game. And of course, Buffalo is missing Von Miller. He's been out a few games, but that's huge too, because he gave them such an advantage on that line, and they still have a good defensive line.
Right.
But because I think with Ed Oliver and Von Miller, they were really doing their thing. But here's where you already raised the specter of Josh Allen and his inconsistency, I'll say.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you, there's something there that nobody's talking about. I wonder how much did Baltimore beat up Cincinnati physically?
Yeah, that's something to think about. That's true.
Because there's been a history of teams that are very physical, and then the team that wins the game goes on the next week and they run out of gas. And it's gonna be interesting to see.
That will be.
Because Baltimore beat up Cincinnati, man.
They did. They really did.
They beat them up.
That was a very physical game.
So I'm kind of interested. So even though both Buffalo and Cincinnati played close games last week, so nobody got a chance to rest anybody. Right. But I don't think the Miami team was as physical with Buffalo as Baltimore was with Cincinnati. So I have nothing to go on there. It's just something I'm going to wonder about.
No, that could be a factor. That kind of physicality takes its toll.
Yeah, if there's a wearing out factor that we might start seeing late in the third into the fourth quarter with the line play and stuff like that. And so we'll see.
Good point.
Yeah.
Very good point.
So before we leave the AFC, we both like KC. So who are you picking in the Cincinnati Buffalo game?
I'm going to pick Buffalo because they're at home, basically.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Cincinnati beat them.
I concur. That's how close the game is. I still think it's going to be a one-possession game, field goal game probably. So I guess right now we're looking at KC Buffalo, which would end up being on a neutral field because, they play in Atlanta. Let's go to the NFC. What do you think about the Giants at Philly? Third time they're playing. Philly beat them twice, blew them out a few weeks ago in New York by 26.
I think it's going to be a good game. I think it'll be closer. I think Philly will beat them. But I think, it depends. It depends on, Daniel Jones is going to have to play another excellent game to keep them in it. And I don't know if he can play as well against Philly as he did last week. I mean, that'd be hard to, hold somebody to that kind of standard.
Right.
Against a much better defensive team, But, I think Saquon's going to be a key in that game. He's going to have to be effective for the Giants to have a chance in the running game. And if he's not, I think Philly will beat them. I think Philly's going to beat him anyway. I think it'll be a much closer game if Saquon has some success. The Giants are playing pretty good defense. They have a good defensive team, and they play hard. And I think it's going to be a good game. But I look at Philly to win. And given that, hoping that Hurts is at full capacity to play. I don't know how his injury status is. I know he's going to play, but, if he's not physically able to do what he did earlier in the year with his running ability and stuff like that, the Giants could get them some trouble. I look forward to a good game, but I think Philly will come out ahead. Yeah,
let me start with Hurts since you left there. They say that he's, is as healthy as he can be expected to be. I think the key with his injury is his ability to throw the deep ball or the patterns that take a while. You need a little arm strength because, he had the right shoulder injury.
Right.
And I don't know that it'll affect his running only in this way. I loved his comments. He said, hey, what did he say? There's always a target on me and
a bounty.
Whatever, bounty, and whatever happens. Which tells me when the game starts, he's running the ball.
Oh, he's gonna play.
And so the idea, unless he gets hurt again running, so they'll have that element back.
Right.
I think the key will be how effective can he throw if that injury is affecting that. Because some of the patterns that they run and crossing patterns, deep outs.
The thing I'm concerned about with the running is him getting hit on that shoulder.
Of course, yeah. I mean, but I think he's decided he's going to play. He's going to play.
Yeah.
So,
Hurts, I'm a Hurts fan. That was my man. So, I expect him to go at it 100% whatever he has.
Yeah.
But I think Philadelphia just had a better team overall.
They do. They have a deep team, and they're I understand Lane Johnson will be back on the offensive line, and that's big for them.
I think Quinn is back too.
Okay.
I think he's healthy.
On the defensive, and they rotate about 7-8 defensive linemen, and they stay fresh.
That's right.
Yeah. But to New York, and you're right, they got a good defense. They got Saquon. Daniel Jones played an excellent game against Minnesota, and frankly, he had a much better season. Because his rookie year, he turned the ball over 30-something times. Fumbles and then lost fumbles and interceptions, and he got it down, I think, around 8 or 9 total this year. So he made a tremendous improvement. But here's the thing with Daniel Jones. As I cite his improvement, just for the entire season, which is good, it gives them an opportunity to be competitive. But his 3 best games this year were against 3 of the worst defenses in football, twice against the Vikings, including last week, and once against the Lions. So if that's any indicator, it doesn't mean he can't play well, but it's unlikely we're going to see anywhere close to last week's Daniel Jones appear in Philadelphia this coming weekend. So, and I think that could be, but I do think it's going to be competitive. I do think because it's a divisional team. I'm not buying all this discussion about the pressures on Philly. I think Philly's going to go out and play its ball game, and I expect them to win the game too. Dallas Frisco.
A war.
I agree.
A war. Yeah. I think Dallas has a good chance to beat them. Somebody pointed out Frisco's on this long winning streak, but they said that most of the teams they played were less than 500 teams.
That's true. No, that's true.
That is true.
That is true.
So that's something to think about. And they're going against a really, really talented defense. Man, they're going to put pressure on the quarterback. They put pressure on every quarterback. So he's going to see how this guy stands up under this kind of pressure. He hasn't faced anything like this yet, but he's going to see it this weekend for sure. So I think that's a game that Dallas could win, and I think they should win. But you never know, because San Francisco has a great defense, and they have a really good offense. So the quarterback for me is the issue. How well is it? This guy can keep playing as mistake-free as he has.
Right.
It should be a rather close game. But I can see Dallas coming out of there with a victory.
Yeah.
And I hope it's not just because I'm rooting for Dak. But I think that's possible. I really do.
Yeah, there are a few things that speak to that. One, I think it's actually going to be a good game. But I want to kind of start off with, you made a good point that they haven't played, the toughest teams during this win streak. Now, as I say that, I'm from the camp that when you can win at the professional level, a win's a win. So I'm never going to frown on that. But
No, not at all.
when you get into the playoffs, it becomes a legitimate thing about how good a team really is.
Right.
And I don't have their schedule in front of me, but just off the top of my head, I do know that they didn't play Dallas this year. They being San Francisco. They didn't play Philly this year.
Right.
They didn't even play Minnesota, even though I don't consider Minnesota a good team. And they played the NFC West played the AFC West this year. Okay. And so they played Kansas City, and Kansas City went into San Francisco and beat them by 21 points.
Right.
And I can't remember when they played the Chargers. Not that the Chargers are a great team, but the Chargers did make the playoffs, had a winning record. So my point is, the best team that I know that they played during the winning streak, the best was Seattle, who ended up, they were 9-8 regular season. They beat them 2 or 3 times during that time because they beat them, and 8-9 Tampa Bay, who ended up 8-10, including the playoffs.
Right.
So it's still good that you're handling your business if you're San Francisco, but they have not played a team like Dallas in this period, and so that's where I think and also I believe I generally don't get too deep into this, but I do think this is one of those rare times where this whole notion of pressure, no pressure, Dallas. A lot of people thought they were going to lose to Tampa Bay. Now you didn't, of course, but a lot, the talking heads, Tom Brady, Robert Boop the Bop, and Dak, come off that bad game against Washington. But now a lot of people talking about what a juggernaut Frisco is, and they are a really good team, and I think that plays right into Dallas's hands. And it doesn't mean they'll win, but I think it's going to be an excellent game. The only thing I'd be surprised is if anybody blows the other one out.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's going to be an excellent game.
I think so. It should be. It's tacked up that way.
And what do you think? How you think Purdy's going to hold up?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, he's going to be under more pressure than he's been under to date.
He will.
And that's going to be a key factor. Because in that game against Seattle, the game was close. Like you said, you pointed out, they were getting to him with a 4-man rush. That's why I couldn't understand why they never sent a fifth player.
Right.
Because a lot of times they sent a fifth player, they would put him on the ground. And under those circumstances, that's when he played his worst ball, when they had him under pressure like that. And a couple of times he evaded guys, he made some good runs, some good moves. So he's a talented guy. He's playing very well. I'm not trying to knock him at all. He's playing surprisingly well given, the lack of respect he got coming out of college, to be the last guy picked. He's playing better than anybody would expect and to do so. But I'm just curious. I'm curious to see when, like I said, playing the best defense he's ever faced. And he's going to be under pressure. Michael Parsons is going to give him a hard time. And all those guys, really, they're going to be on him. So if he can continue to keep his cool and use those ways, he's got a lot of weapons. Give him the ball fast. He's going to have to.
Right.
He could, I don't know. He could, if he plays as well as he's been playing, good for San Francisco. But I don't see him doing that. I think the pressure is going to be a difference. I really do. I think he'll make more mistakes possibly and get sacked a few times. Get hurt into some bad tosses that might get picked off because Dallas is an opportunistic defense and they take the ball away.
They are.
They take the ball from you, one way or the other. So, yeah. I don't know. I don't want to jinx, because how bad he might play, but I just think this is going to be the real test for him to see if he can stand up under the kind of pressure he's going to probably be facing. Yeah,
and I'm going to go so far as to say if San Francisco had a veteran quarterback, and I don't think Garoppolo's a great one, but let's just say for sake of argument he was quarterbacking and he was playing decent going into the game, I probably would give them the edge. Because of their defense, their running game, like I said, they're extremely talented, and they have a veteran. I really do believe that. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think we're going to see not because he's not good. He might be a really good quarterback long term, but he is so inexperienced.
Sure, he is.
And if this game is as competitive and close as I think it's going to be, I got a feeling, and not even from a nerve standpoint, just. Seeing certain things like in the third and fourth quarter he hasn't had to deal with because all the games have been blowouts largely.
Right.
And so I'm picking Dallas in an upset in this game. Matter of fact, it's the only game where I think the road team, even though I like you, I do believe Cincy could win. I wouldn't be surprised. I think the Giants going to be competitive, but I'm picking Dallas in this one.
Yeah.
I'm picking Dallas.
Along with that. I'll go along with that too.
So it looks like we're together. So we expect the NFC Championship game to be San Francisco traveling to Philly, and in the AFC Buffalo and Kansas City on a neutral field.
Well, no, not San Francisco traveling to Philly. Dallas.
Did I say San Francisco? Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Dallas. Sorry. Thank you.
Dallas. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah.
And then one thing I did want to say before I forget, isn't it interesting how the NFC East went from the least 2 years ago when Washington made the playoffs with 7 wins,
right.
And now they're like the NFC beast because 3 of the final 4 teams are from their division.
That's right.
That's something.
That is something.
So yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Now here's the I saved this for last for that game intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
What about the Dallas place kicker, Brett
Man,
Maher?
you know, when I watched that game, I knew he was going to miss those last three kicks. I expected to miss the first one. When I saw him kick that first one and miss that, the way he was lining up, he was lining up, in my opinion, too close to the holder.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it was at a far enough angle. And then after he missed that first one, he started to try to aim kicks rather than just going in and kicking the ball. If you notice those soccer style kickers, they really get like at a maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I hadn't thought about that.
Like a little wider out from the holder, and they come in and they hit the ball right in the middle of the ball. You know, and that way, if you do that, you kick it straight in the middle. But he was kind of almost not standing directly behind the holder, but he was maybe two steps to the left away from where he should have been. Two steps to the right away from where he should have been in terms of where the holder was. So I wasn't surprised at all. And then he just got tight and started trying to aim the ball. But he kicked it exactly where he was aiming. You know, he just aimed terribly. You know, he was lined up wrong, I think.
Maybe you need to get on the phone and call Dallas because you got it all technically proficient. The one thing I did know, it's interesting you said that about you knew he was going to miss. After he missed the second one, I wondered how the third one was going to be, and then he just pulled it. He overcompensated because the first two he missed wide right. Then the next one he missed left, and then he was all messed up after that, man.
He was.
And then, of course, the world can't get over the fact that the over-under for the game, I believe, was either 45.5 or 46.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it's bad enough to miss one extra point that might cost somebody some money that had the over. But when you miss 4 extra points,
I know
that almost looked like, well, let me not go there.
The moral of the story is to teach you not to gamble.
Of course. I'm just saying that as a sidelight. But that's all people have been talking about with this guy missing. But on a serious note, man, the word is San Francisco. I'll keep going. Mm-hmm. Dallas is not going to, they're going to stick with him. So I'm assuming that if he misses his first extra point, they're going to probably go for 2 from thereafter. And they probably would let him kick long field goals because, maybe it's not as much pressure on the long field goals because, he's done well from distance. So I don't know. But that could be a difference. And then San Francisco was Robbie. Well, I know it sounds like it should be pronounced Gould, but I guess he pronounces it Gold. He made 4 field goals against Seattle.
Yeah, he does this too often.
So it's so that's going to be the one uncertainty that works in San Francisco's favor.
Yeah, you talk about pressure, right?
Oh, that is some pressure.
He better not miss.
Yeah.
You might need him in San Francisco.
Yeah.
In the Bay.
Yeah, in the Bay. Yeah.
Right.
All right, man. So we've run the gamut in the NFL. But before we turn our attentions elsewhere, let me just throw a few things see what you think. We don't have to get too deep because we'll have all off season probably. But Tua, Tagovailoa, I don't know why all of a sudden I can't say it. For the Dolphins, do you think they've announced he's their quarterback? What's your take on that with the concussion issue?
I'm sure they're going to let him come back, and as the number one quarterback, I don't know what they plan to do in the offseason in terms of getting in the draft or bringing in some other veteran to back him up or something like that. They're going to go into the season with him being the number one guy. I just worry about him from a health standpoint,
right?
And whether or not he should. I think he should think very serious about playing football again, given what I saw happen to him, back to back like that in a matter of a couple of days. And I don't know, I'm not a doctor, no neurologist, anything like that, but I just worry about guys who have head injuries like that continue to play. The effect that has, down the road, man. I'd be if I was a family member of his or a friend, I would advise him to think very, very deeply about whether or not he should continue to play. I'm really worried about him. I wish him well. He was having a decent season. He's playing well. But I don't know what to say about the other than what I just said. I'd be very cautious with that.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I wish him well too. He's a good ball player. Look like he's a good dude. And I gotta say this because I'm always getting on people for mispronounce. I don't know how I mispronounce. I'm gonna say it. Tua Tagovailoa. Sorry, Tua. I always have a problem when people mispronounce people's names. It ain't that difficult. Let me correct that.
Right on.
What about Brady, man?
I think Brady should go get that money from whoever's going to give it to him to sit around and talk about football.
I think it's Fox.
Yeah, Fox or whoever.
Was it 10-year, $300 million, something like that?
Yeah, man. Why
Goodness gracious.
I guess he's a very competitive guy and loves to play, obviously. So, if somebody's going to give him $40 million to come play for them, I guess he won't turn it down. But he's at a point where I think he's accomplished everything you can accomplish in a career. So, other than just his pure love for the game, it kind of reminds me of it's another sport. It reminds me of another icon. You hate to see your icons leave. Willie Mays at the end of his career, he was playing with the Mets.
Oh, man, 73, that was,
yeah. It was brutal to watch him.
It was.
What he had been, and it didn't take away from what he had accomplished, and it won't take away from, Brady's last couple of years won't take away from what he accomplished.
Right.
It's just that, why put yourself through that, and now in Willie's case, I can understand it, because the money was different in those days, right?
Yeah, that's true. You're right. That's right.
But a guy like, Brady doesn't need the money, I wouldn't think, and he has this
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Limited jobs, he got all kind of opportunities waiting for him outside of football, movies or whatever he wants to do. So, it's up to him, obviously, but I think from a team standpoint, I wouldn't pay him to be my quarterback. I wouldn't go out and get him. I don't see why anybody would want him, other than he's Tom Brady, they can make a lot of money off his name. But as a productive ball player, I think his days are behind him. And they can say what they want about he didn't have this, he didn't have that on his team. But you watched him in that game against Dallas and other games before throughout the season. He did a lot of stuff. He missed. The guys were open. He's just missing them, throwing behind them, throwing it over, doing all kind of stuff. He's 45 years old, be 46 next year. Nobody plays forever.
Yeah,
who it is.
yeah.
And I think it's just time for him to move on to something else. It's up to him, and the NFL, they want to keep this myth going. It's the greatest player ever who can play until he's 90. That's their business. But the other side of it is, he keeps his butt out there, he's going to get hurt one day.
Yeah. And to your point, it's real interesting that when you watch him, you can tell, not that anybody ever wants to get hit, but there are times, man, he will not step into a throw. And that's why you see a lot of errant throws. It's like he's not doing what he should be doing. He's shying away, and these same pundits that make excuses for him in other areas, they won't talk about that. Very seldom will they say that.
No, they don't knock Brady.
But it's like you have to speak to that. I mean, it was very evident in the Dallas game. Right. There were at least 8 or 10 times where he just like, let me get rid of this ball. Damned whether it gets completed or not, including that interception in the end zone.
Right.
He didn't even have enough about him to throw that out the end zone. He was only around the 15-yard line.
Yeah, something like
that ain't nothing. No, but he was paying so much attention to that oncoming rusher. He just flipped it and like, let me get rid of it. I don't want to get hit, and threw the interception. And that was when the game was still 6-0.
Right. That's right.
So, and my other point with Brady is like your points are well taken. Because I don't know why he would play either. But here's what I think is going to be for lack of a better term, competing interests. Mm-hmm. Everybody says that Brady wants to only chase Super Bowls, which means he has to be in the perfect situation on a good team because he needs a lot of help. So that it can't be that many places. Because the places you would go already got quarterbacks.
Right.
And then, or you have what you raised, the issue if he goes somewhere, if somebody can sell his jerseys and make a lot of money off his name for 1 or 2 years, even though the team may not be nothing. And so the competing interest would be, would Brady decide, I just want to play if I can't land in a good spot?
Right.
And will I just go and play with, whatever, right? Knowing I ain't gonna win a title, right? So that's what's going to be really interesting to me. That's going to be. But I'm with you, man. I can't imagine, at least publicly, nobody worth their salt wants to bring him in now, unless they're just trying to make some money off his name and jersey for a year. Because that he can't. I mean, the only way you could see him winning a championship now, he would have to be the quarterback for the Niners or the Eagles.
Right, they play flag ball.
And play, yeah. And even then, there's going to still be times that somebody's going to get in there on you.
Exactly.
And if you make a critical turnover at the wrong time, you still defeat the purpose. So
that's true.
And and I think as you get older, even when the rules are such that somebody like Brady can look like he's doing okay until he doesn't look like he's doing okay. Because the game is different now. He had a very poor season, and yet he threw 26, 7 TDs, only 8 or 9, 10 interceptions.
Yeah, let the league pass.
Right, most completions and all that. But but when you dug into the numbers, he had his lowest touchdown percentage. He had his lowest yards per attempt. I heard yesterday that he set an NFL record yesterday in the playoffs for anybody that threw for at least 350 yards had the fewest yards per attempt in history. So but because of the modern day game is such. See, 40 years ago, if you played like Brady played yesterday, your numbers would be 8 for 28. For 101 yards, no touchdowns, and 4 picks because the game was different.
Exactly.
But now you can hide behind these nice statistics, and so. Anyway, man, I don't know. I don't know if you got a final comment on Brady, but.
No, that was it. That was it. I mean, I wish him well, whatever he does, but it's in his ballpark because they don't want to see him go. So, apparently.
Yeah, but it could end bad if he is not careful.
It could.
And then the last one I want to talk about is Lamar Jackson.
Man, Lamar. Well, first of all, I want to say Lamar is smart not to play if he's injured. I think he made a wise choice because too many times these athletes get caught up in this macho stuff and forget that this is a business. It's always a business from the owner's side, but somehow the player's supposed to tough it out
and be loyal.
Be loyal and all this crap, like Michael Vick came out and said, well, I played with a torn MCL.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Strap it up and go play. Well, Michael Vick was crazy to do that. And I love Michael Vick, big fan of his. He's a tremendous athlete. But that's the mindset that they put in these guys' heads. You got to tough it out for your team and blah, 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 blah. But then as soon as you get hurt, they throw you in the snap. That's
right. There you go.
It's business. So Lamar was super intelligent not to play if he's injured and not to play until he's healthy.
Well, I believe he's injured, though.
I do too. I'm just saying.
I believe he's injured.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I believe it too. I don't think he's faking it. But I'm just saying, you're injured, you don't play. You get caught up in that crap. It was a wise business decision and a decision for his future, going forward, his health, man. So I don't have any problems with that. But this whole salary thing with Lamar is another issue. Baltimore is ridiculous, trying to penny pinch this guy. They won't get him the kind of help he needs to be really successful. They play this pedestrian-ass offense. Never get him a decent wide receiver. I don't know why they don't get one of these young guys coming out of college that can go get the ball. So that's going to be a well-rounded team. They could be a juggernaut. It would soup up their offense up. Instead of putting all this pressure on the defense and win these close 3-point games and stuff like that. It's ridiculous. That's the way they've been playing for, like you said earlier to me a couple days ago. So they were playing that for the last 10, 15 years or longer. Go back to those Ray Lewis teams and stuff like that. The offense always stunk, And they had these great defensive teams. But they have an opportunity to have both.
They do. That's it. You're right.
Why not go out and get some good wide receivers for this guy? They can open up the offense a bit. Take some pressure off the defense, man. That used to drive me crazy. Those old teams with Ray Lewis and Reed and Suggs and those guys, man. They could have won 4 or 5 Super Bowls in a row with the defense they had. If they had any kind of offense, they scored 21 points a game. They probably would have won 3 or 4 Super Bowls. Most of the time they outscored the offense. Sometimes they were so good. It's just, I don't know. It's just crazy, man. And any other quarterback wouldn't be treated that way. I'll put it that way.
Oh, absolutely not.
He's a black quarterback, and they talk all this crap about you get hurt and he runs and he this, he that. But it's an asset when Josh Allen does it, but he does it. It's a problem. So please, same old crap.
I find it interesting in that because the same people that were talking about him being hurt ain't said nothing about Matthew Stafford missed the last 10, 11 games of the year this year. And it goes on every year like that. It's like they always conveniently forget those guys.
Yeah,
You
black
know.
quarterback is a problem because he runs. But
Yeah.
and some European quarterback is an asset.
And these guys get hurt, and and he got 2 years in a row. He's been hurt in the pocket. So I mean, this whole notion of, but it's like the other. We talked about this off air. The narrative about you hear people say, well, he's only won one playoff game. Well, first of all, he's only in the 5th year of his career, and Peyton Manning didn't win his first playoff game to his 6th, 7th season. And then the other thing is that as I mentioned, one of these analysts, Joy Taylor, mentioned, he's 45-16 career, which is the second best. The only person that's playing today that's better is Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, right?
And like she said, you got to get to the playoffs first.
That's it.
So how you get, so this all is so stupid, crazy stuff that these people, they'll use anything to disparage this guy, man.
True.
And I just,
it's par for the course, man.
I'm rooting for him. I think right now, 2 months ago I'd have thought it wasn't going to happen. I'm about 50-50 whether he stays or goes. And I'm at a point, I don't know if he don't want to play there anymore because he might think, well, not only did you didn't pay me what I want, even if you want to pay me now, if you're not going to put anybody around me, to hell with it.
Right. Put all that weight on him all the time.
It's
that's true.
So I know some people say he could end up with the Jets. I really think if he doesn't end up there, he's going to probably end up in the NFC South for a couple of reasons. One of the NFC South teams is Tampa, which he's a Florida guy, but the rest of the division is Southern teams. And then the other thing is that Baltimore would have to trade him, and I don't think they're going to trade him inside the conference.
Right. I don't think they do that.
Yeah, so, but yeah, this is looking like Lamar Jackson will be with another team unless Baltimore comes to grips and realizes, the mistake they're about to make.
Right.
Because have they forgot? Because not only if you look at his record since he's been on the team, when he's been out, but did they forget that when he replaced Joe Flacco, what they were?
Right, exactly.
It was something like 3-6 or something like 2-5, and had come off a couple of bad years.
The fans are riding Baltimore if they bring him back, man. Because that's what they come to see play.
Right. Well, that's why the you have to really wonder about Harbaugh and the way he's handled this in the front office, because it's almost like they're trying to sour the fans against Lamar.
Yeah, true. That's true.
So it'll make it easier for them to go in a different direction.
Yeah, paint him as a bad guy.
You paint him as a bad guy, and either force him to come back to the table in the way that they want, or well, if you leave us, or if you force our hand, the fans won't mutiny. But that's going to be interesting, man, to see what happens. All right, man. Well, in the remaining moments, let's turn our attention elsewhere. I'm going to throw a couple of things out there. One is, just as a matter of interest, in Major League Baseball, the journey of Carlos Correa from Minnesota to San Francisco to the New York Mets, back to Minnesota. I mean,
that was amazing.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, what can I say? I don't know what's going on there, but I don't know what his foot looks like, his ankle looks like, but
right. They said it's from a 2014 surgery that Minnesota and I mean not Minnesota, the Mets and the Giants doctors had an issue with it, but not the Twins.
Right. That's interesting.
And so he went from 13 years, a little over $300 million. Then the Mets was 11, approximately $300 million. And now the Twins are 6 years, 200, with I think some options on 3 or 4 more years. So he's still gonna do well.
Oh yeah. It's just not one of those ridiculous contracts. Yeah.
But this is just, I think this is the first. Do you ever remember something like this ever happening? Now we've heard of teams being in the bidding, but I've never heard. He had press conferences scheduled for Frisco. Right. Then he had one scheduled for the Mets.
I know.
And when he had the one scheduled for Minnesota, I started wondering about that too.
They're going to pull back.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is. But
I don't know what to say about that.
yeah, I don't either, man. I just thought from a little levity, and I'm happy for him. He's a hell of a player.
Absolutely, he is.
He's a hell of a player, particularly in the postseason.
Oh, man,
He's played very well. He's played
really
very
has.
well. LeBron is a little over 300 points. I think 315 points behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to become the career all-time scoring leader in NBA history.
Right.
And for what it's worth, NBA, ABA history, when you combine them, they still be the all-time leading. Kareem is still the all-time leading scorer. Any observations?
Well, a couple. Yeah, I'm. You can call me old fuddy-duddy or stick in the mud or whatever, but let's eliminate the three-point shot, which I've never been a fan of, and that'll put him back quite a bit. And how many more games played that Kareem played? So I mean, it's quite an accomplishment. I'm not taking anything away from him. He's a tremendous player, one of the best players I've ever seen. So hats off to him and congratulations. But it comes with an asterisk as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think your point with the 3-point, that's just the way the game is. They get more points.
Right.
Because of the three, but to be fair to LeBron's career scoring average is actually higher than Kareem's. So he would have played fewer games than Kareem.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah, because Kareem ended up Kareem because towards down the stretch
Yeah, how long did Kareem play? I forgot how long.
Kareem played till he was 42 years old.
He played about 20 years.
Yeah, he played 20 years, and until those last two, he was still averaging in the 20s. I mean, I looked up the other day. I think the year Kareem was 39, which would have been like his 18th year, maybe.
Okay.
Something like that. Kareem was still averaging like almost 24 a game, and I think he was first team All NBA.
Okay.
So he was still doing his thing, man. But I think your point about the 3-pointer, it's and then of course and I'm not going because this wasn't about disparaging anybody. This is the aggregate scoring. The career scoring average is Wilt and Jordan are tied at like 30.1 or 30.2. I forget which one is when you go to the second number after the decimal point. I can't remember which one is which.
Right.
But they're still 1 and 2 in terms of that. So.
But hats off to LeBron. He's a tremendous player.
Oh, he's a tremendous player, man.
His accomplishments in this era and what he's done with various teams and teams that didn't have a whole lot of talent. He's won championships with them, stuff like that. So you can't take anything away from him. He's amazing.
Yeah, and this year he's averaging almost 30 points with 7-8 boards, 8 assists.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. He just got 40-something the other night.
Yeah.
Somebody.
He's
ridiculous.
just.
He's a freak of nature. You look at him, man. He looks like he did when he was, 10 years ago. He's just
he does. He does.
He's tremendous. Wish him well.
Yeah.
Play as long as he wants to, as long as he keeps that up.
Yeah. And before we get off this, I also want to pay a little ode to Kareem. I know we like to talk about some of the older guys, so people. Now Kareem is somebody that most people are familiar with. But I just real quickly, just we know about his all-time leading score and all that. 19-time All-Star, 15 times first and second team All-NBA, 11 times first and second team All-Defense, 6 MVPs, 2 Finals MVPs. I just want everybody to remember that. And if you go back to college, 3 years of the varsity, 3 national championships, 3 Final Four MVPs, and 3 Player of the Year awards, and then of course they outlawed the dunk. And then, as you can speak to, when he was at Powell Memorial in high school, you can make an argument that the most decorated basketball player in the history of all levels is Kareem. So I just wanted to throw that out there for those who tend to forget about him when they start talking about some of the greatest players in the history of the game. It's like they forget about Kareem.
He was very special. Very special.
So, man.
Tremendous athlete and just a tremendous person on and off the court.
Yes.
Politically and
astute, intellectual.
Very intellectual, brilliant. He's just quite a renaissance man. He really is. Whatever that term is worth,
Right.
He's a tremendous guy. I have all respect for him.
And to appropriately close the show, man, on January 15th, was the 94th birthday of the great Martin Luther King Jr., and the federal holiday was celebrated this past Monday, the 16th.
Right.
Any observations of the great King?
Well, he's one of the most outstanding people that has ever gotten recognition in the history of this planet. You know, and I'm sure there are probably a lot of people like him that didn't get the same publicity and stuff like that. But to have the platform he had and the things he stood for and things he did and gave his life for, he's one of the most tremendous human beings that I've ever heard of. And the sad part is that all of the things that he championed, or many of them, although there's been some incremental adjustments to some of the situations, most of the things he championed and fought for, those problems still exist today.
Yeah.
It's a sad commentary on the state of this world. That, you know, the rich get rich and the poor get poorer. There's so many people who are overlooked, destitute, marginalized, discriminated against for all kinds of reasons. And it's just absurd that as a species, the human race hasn't made more progress towards humanity than it has. And he's a great, great man. I can't thank him enough for all the sacrifices and examples he set, along with many others. But Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a wonderful human being.
Yes, and I think to echo or to add to what you just said, it's been 55 years since he was, well, it'll be 55 years on April the 4th. And I can still hear my mother, who rarely used a curse word. And I remember her saying, "The bastards killed him. The bastards killed him," with tears in her eyes.
Right. And unfortunately, the bastards still rule.
Yeah.
They still rule, and not much has changed on really, not really.
Yeah, and I mean, I could talk for days about King, and I know you could too. One of the things, and this is a negative, but not about King, but I get so tired of how he gets marginalized, or as much as we all love the "I Have a Dream" speech, and what that means, and you can see on some levels why they market it, but he was so much more than that speech.
Of course he was.
I mean, he may have been the greatest orator, at least that I've ever heard in my life. A brilliant tactician. He had immeasurable courage. And as you said, he gave his life. It's kind of remarkable that he could accomplish what he did in those brief 39 years.
Right.
And to your point, as you said, there were many others who, along with him, made sure certain things did happen, even though a lot of those things have now either been reduced or dissipated. Right. But that was one of the things I loved about him also, is that he was an everyman. He was a common man.
Right.
And he really ran into it, because not only was he anti-war, he was anti-poverty.
Exactly.
And it just, I mean, to read some of the things that he wrote, to study some of his speeches, he was just a brilliant man. Started at Morehouse at 15.
Right. Imagine that, right?
Yeah, I mean, imagine that.
This is one thing he said, that if everybody lived by the credo, the world would be where it should be. Dr. King once said, "It's always the right time to do the right thing."
There you go.
Simple as that.
There you go.
Simple as that.
There you go.
Right.
And it's and in my old age, man, it's they're like our parents and the people before them, they're all regal to me.
Absolutely.
And King is, and it's just no pun intended, but he's as regal as they came.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
And the last thing I'll say is, in a public forum like this, I'm almost hesitant to speak about him other than a few words, because it almost doesn't seem to do him justice. if that makes sense.
Right, I understand.
And it's the same way I feel about a number of people. I mean, Paul Robeson, Malcolm X, Jackie Robinson, just so many people.
Right, so many people.
You just feel like it doesn't do justice, but you got to mention them to some extent, particularly for the younger generation. And so, but anyway, man, I'm rambling now. So
no, that's okay. That's all right. Yeah.
So you got anything else you want to add, brother?
No, that's about it. So I'm just looking forward to this weekend and see what happens with these games. And,
yeah.
Just some other points. I'll get to it another day. Things I've been thinking about. One thing I'll mention is back to football. I noticed where this brother, I think he's from the 49ers, Carson, is made general manager of the Titans.
I heard that this morning.
Rand Carson, I think his name is. So that's something to look at. A little bit of step in a good direction, perhaps. See an African American get an opportunity to put a team together down there in Tennessee. Interesting to see what happens with that.
Were you hear about Trey Lance's tweet?
No.
Yeah, Trey Lance sent a tweet, kind of thumbs up in that. And so you wonder, because, Tennessee needs a quarterback.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's right.
And it looks like, they all in love with Purdy.
Yeah, Purdy, yeah.
So, I could see,
quite available,
Lance might be in Tennessee next year.
He might be.
Be starting quarterback over there.
That's true. That's true.
But that's good to hear, man. And
but if everything's fair, though, Lance will have his hands full messing with Mr. Dobbs.
Oh, I agree with you. I'm hoping Dobbs gets an opportunity somewhere, man.
But what he showed, man, in 2-3 weeks over the team, he should be the front runner starter coming out of what they have right now.
Yeah.
I'm happy for him too.
Well, I'm happy for him too. Hope he gets opportunity. But you made me now think about, what do you think about this notion of but the possibility of Brian Flores ending up as the head coach in Arizona?
Hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I've heard it in a couple of spots. He's interviewing there.
Oh, okay.
And some people feel that he might have a good shot because of, they think they want to bring in a no-nonsense guy. And I guess he worked with the guy they just brought in as the guy that worked at New England. So
manager,
so.
Hey, good. Well, God bless him. I hope he gets an opportunity.
Yeah, I hope he gets one too, man. He does.
And there's several other guys who will be in interviews with that Rooney Rule crap, see if any fruition comes out of that. But there are guys who are deserving, who should get an opportunity. And to me, just talk about this coaching thing. I don't know why everybody's so in love with
Sean Payton.
Yeah, Sean Payton. He's the hottest thing going. Oh, Sean Payton. Like, he's everybody's answer to whatever problem every team has,
Right.
I mean, come on, please. What has he done, really? He won one Super Bowl, give him that. I'll say he threw away opportunity to win another. Sticking with Drew Brees when he was over the hill and couldn't make a 30-yard out pass anymore.
Right.
And had a guy sitting on the bench that he wouldn't put in the game, so he sabotaged his whole team to keep Drew Brees' ego intact, and threw a season away where they might have gone somewhere and done something. And he had Jameis Winston on the sideline who could make that throw in his sleep, but wouldn't play him, So, Sean Payton in love with him I don't get it, man. But it's not unusual. They always do that. Just the fact that the other guys in the Hall of Fame guys used to be in Pittsburgh still rocks my boat, What's the coach?
Tomlin.
Cowher.
Oh, Bill Cowher, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Cowher in the Hall of Fame. If that kind of guy, what Bill Cowher do to deserve to be in the Hall of Fame?
Please. We got to do a whole show, man, because and the reason I say that is not just to talk about it, but to give the audience some context of where we're coming from, because when we make a comment like the one with Peyton or the Cowher, people think we're picking. But if we give the entire context and begin to give the information and the data, it'll begin to make sense for people. Because your point, I contend, and that's why I say we'd have to do a whole show or two, the Cowhers of the world, the Peytons of the world, who will end up in the Hall of Fame, it's all a product. It's all a product of the dominance of the black players. Because before football became integrated in the way that we've seen it over the last 40 years or so, which also means these guys end up going into the Hall of Fame, you started seeing a disproportionate number of white coaches and GMs and non-players getting in the Hall of Fame for you know, now I could be wrong, but before this era with Cowher with one title and certain people and he's even worse than some of the other people, is you know, you had to be fair or unfair. You had to be George Halas, Vince Lombardi, Curly Lambeau, Don Shula, guys that coached for 9,000, Tom Landry, multiple titles.
Exactly.
And you not one championship. Now one might argue, well, Tony Dungy. Well, you better put Tony, because the one thing that Dungy had that Cowher and them don't have is I think the second highest winning percentage in football history.
Exactly.
But and so you can't, you know, but that's what's happened, man.
Right.
And you're gonna see it with Sean Payton. You're gonna see it with a number of these people. And to show you how raggedy it is, none of us would have a problem with Bill Belichick getting in the Hall of Fame one day.
Not at all.
But you're going to have Sean Payton in the Hall of Fame and somebody else with one title in the Hall of Fame and somebody else with one title in the Hall of Fame. And as much as, you know, Andy Reid is a good coach, that, you know, even though he has coached a long time, I give him more credit than a Cowher. But if, let's say he never wins another title, he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. I heard somebody the other day say he's one of the greatest coaches of all time.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
why?
That's what I say, you know, and I like Andy Reid, but
I do. He's a good coach.
He's a good coach. But how is he an all-time great coach?
I know.
So, yeah, that's why I say we got to do a whole show, man, because this thing is crazy. But I think it's a direct correlation, because I think if the game was still predominantly or lily white, then the Bill Cowhers would never be in the Hall of Fame, because everybody would have enough white players, and that's what they would do. But now, because they've done the same thing in baseball with the managers, the exact same thing, man.
Got to find a way to get these guys.
So they have to find a way to get white faces in there.
Right.
You know. I know they got a handful of white quarterbacks, but you know where I'm going with that, man.
Exactly.
That's my theory, and I know people don't like it.
Yeah, you're probably right on.
But that's why I think we see. Because, man, when I heard Bill Cowher got in the Hall of Fame, I was like,
I couldn't believe it.
Bill Cowher?
I know. I said, for what?
Bill Cowher?
Exactly. Yeah.
I was like, man.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So.
Yeah,
Anyway, well, as we always do, we went from closing the show to adding 15 more minutes.
That's okay.
I know, man. I know. Yeah, no, but it's good stuff. Good stuff. All right, man. Well, it's been a pleasure once again, and I hope the folks who are listening enjoyed it. Hope we added a little bit to their listening experience.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. So, like you, I'm looking forward to the 4 divisional games this weekend, and we'll do this again real soon. Hopefully, this time next week.
Right.
We'll be recapping that, what happened this upcoming weekend, and previewing the conference finals.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, take care of your end of the world.
I'll do my best.
I know you will. I'm going to try to do the same on this end.
I'm sure you will.
All right, man. Take care of yourself.